Imagine a fire that does not start with a spark from without, but a catalyst from within. Imagine your own flesh transforming into a fuel source, waiting for a signal to ignite. This is the silent horror of SCP-081. It is not a ghost, nor a curse, nor a freak accident of physics. It is a biological predator. SCP-081 is a contagious virus. To the untrained eye, it appears to be a mutated version of a known pathogen, but its architecture is different. Its RNA contains segments that deviate from any natural strain. It is a precision instrument designed for a singular, devastating purpose. The virus is human-specific. It does not seek to kill its host immediately. Instead, it uses the world around us as a bridge. Rats are the primary vectors. They act as passive carriers, moving through the shadows of our cities, carrying the spark of SCP-081 without ever feeling its burn. But once the virus leaps from the rodent to the human, the clock begins to tick. It can also spread through the intimacy of sexual intercourse or the direct exposure to infected blood. Once inside the body, SCP-081 does not attack the lungs or the brain. It targets the adipocytes, the fat cells, and the leukocytes, the white blood cells. The virus hijacks these systems, forcing them into a state of hyperabsorption. The body begins to crave nutrients at a vastly accelerated rate. While this happens, the infected B cells are repurposed. They stop defending the body and begin producing large quantities of a modified human antibody. This is the beginning of a long, slow transformation. The infection proceeds in 4 distinct stages. For those who carry SCP-081, the first week is a deceptive peace. This is stage 1. There are no major symptoms to warn the victim. They may feel a slight, lingering tiredness, a heaviness in the limbs, a need for more sleep than usual. It feels like a common cold or the onset of exhaustion. But beneath the surface, the virus is settling in. It is rewriting the chemistry of the host. As the second week arrives, the infection enters stage 2. The subtle fatigue is replaced by something more unsettling. The victim begins to experience hot flashes, sudden waves of heat that bloom across the skin without a clear cause. Along with this heat comes an increased appetite. The hunger is not yet desperate, but it is persistent. The body is preparing for what comes next. Then, the descent into stage 3 begins. This stage is defined by extreme polyphagia. The hunger becomes an all-consuming obsession. The infected subject will do anything in their power to obtain food. They will seek out anything edible. The drive to eat overrides logic and restraint. While the appetite skyrockets, a strange paradox occurs within the metabolism. It slows down significantly. The calories are not being burned. They are being stored with terrifying efficiency. Weight gain proceeds rapidly. The body expands. The adipose tissue proliferates, filling the frame of the victim. This is the virus building its reservoir. For SCP-081 to complete its life cycle, it requires a specific biological threshold. The victim must reach a composition of 55% body fat. Until that critical point is reached, the host remains in this state of desperate, unending hunger. There is no set timeline for stage 3. Some may linger in this state for weeks. Others may move faster. But once the 55% threshold is crossed, the nature of the infection shifts violently. Stage 4 begins with a sudden, eerie silence. The urge to eat simply stops. The ravenous hunger that defined the previous stage vanishes instantly. However, the hot flashes return, and they increase in frequency and intensity. The victim may feel as though they are simmering from the inside. They do not know that they have become a living candle. Because stage 4 is largely asymptomatic, the victim has no way of knowing when the end will arrive. There is no warning sign, no final cough, no sudden pain. The timing is random. When the moment arrives, the body undergoes an extremely violent version of widespread cell lysis. Cells across the entire system burst simultaneously. As these cells rupture, the modified antibodies, the ones created during the earlier stages, act as a catalyst. Through unknown means, they ignite the fatty compounds stored within the tissue. The body is incinerated from the inside out. This is known as the wick effect. The accumulated fat serves as the fuel, feeding a fire that consumes the individual in a sudden, blinding flash of heat. The archives of history are littered with the ghosts of SCP-081. The first recorded incident was documented in 1763 by a Frenchman named Jonas Dupont. In his work, De Incendiis Corporis Humani Spontaneis, he recounted a case in Paris that defied the logic of the time. A man stood accused of killing his wife, but he was ultimately acquitted. The jury reached a startling conclusion. The woman had died due to spontaneous human combustion. It was noted in the records that she had been incredibly overweight at the time of her death. For centuries, such cases were treated as anomalies or folklore. But the veil was lifted on July 2, 1951, with the death of Mary Reeser. Her passing brought SCP-081 directly into the attention of the Foundation. The incident was violent and inexplicable, and despite efforts to suppress the truth, the details leaked to the national media. Pictures of the aftermath circulated, showing a world that could not explain how a human being could simply turn to ash. It is now believed that most reported cases of spontaneous human combustion throughout history were not accidents or mysteries, but the result of SCP-081. The virus is an ancient traveler. It is estimated to have existed since the 9th century, originating in distant lands. For a long time, it struggled to find a foothold in Europe. During those centuries, widespread poverty and malnutrition acted as a natural shield. The populations were too lean to sustain the virus. Instances of 3rd and 4th stage infections were rare because the victims could never reach the critical 55% body fat threshold. They died of hunger before the virus could turn them into fuel. However, as the world changed, so did the environment for SCP-081. In the last century, North America became the primary breeding ground for the pathogen. The abundance of food and the shift in dietary habits created a perfect storm. But in recent years, cases have dropped significantly. This is not due to a cure, but to cleaner living conditions and active rat population control. Currently, fewer than a few hundred people a year succumb to late-stage SCP-081. Yet, the threat has not vanished. It has only shifted. The Foundation views the current obesity epidemic in the United States as a critical vulnerability. If the virus were to trigger a wide-scale epidemic, the resulting exposure would be disastrous. The sight of hundreds or thousands of people spontaneously combusting in public spaces would make containment impossible. Dr. has explicitly stated that wild SCP-081 must be eradicated before it finds a way to accelerate its spread. Containment of known samples is an exercise in extreme caution. Only those with Level 4 clearance and specific written permission are allowed near SCP-081. The containment area is a place of sterile dread. Anyone entering must wear full hazard gear, a reinforced suit, gloves, and a constant supply of oxygen from a tank. There is no room for error. A single breach in the suit could mean the beginning of a one-week countdown to an inevitable fire. Upon leaving the containment area, personnel must pass through a disinfectant shower. The chemicals are designed to strip any trace of the virus from the gear before it can reach the outside world. If a containment breach occurs, the protocols are scorched earth. The entire area is exposed to ultraviolet light and then bleached to ensure not a single viral particle survives. For those suspected of being infected, there is only the wait. They are placed in quarantine for 10 days. There is no treatment. There is no medicine to stop the mutation of the RNA. They simply sit in silence, monitored for any sign of fatigue or heat. If no symptoms manifest after the 10th day, they are released. But if a hot flash occurs, or if a sudden hunger takes hold, the quarantine becomes a permanent residence. During testing, a strange anomaly was discovered. People who suffer from diabetes possess a natural immunity to SCP-081. For reasons that remain unexplained, the virus cannot take hold in their systems. This discovery provided a glimmer of hope, but it proved to be a dead end. The immunity has not helped in the development of a cure. SCP-081 remains incurable. When infections occur in the wild, the records are expunged, and alternate causes of death are provided to the public to prevent panic. But there is one final, chilling detail that changed everything. Agent discovered that the danger does not end with the fire. The virus survives the combustion. SCP-081 can spread through exposure to the ashes of a deceased victim. The very remains of those who have burned become a source of new infection. The ash is a carrier, waiting for a new host to inhale it or touch it. This discovery forced an immediate amendment to all containment and epidemic contingency protocols. It cast a dark shadow over every first responder who had ever stepped into the ruins of a combustion site. Every firefighter, every paramedic, and every police officer who responded to the call of Mary Reeser has been detained for evaluation. They are now subjects of their own quarantine, waiting to see if they feel tired, or if they feel a sudden, inexplicable heat. We live in a world where we believe we are in control of our bodies. We track our health, we manage our diets, and we treat our illnesses. But SCP-081 reminds us that we are merely biological vessels. It turns our own sustenance into a weapon. It transforms the act of eating into an act of preparation for our own cremation. The virus is still out there. It is in the walls of old buildings. It is in the sewers beneath the streets. It is carried by the rats that scurry unseen through the dark. And as the world grows heavier, and the hunger of the masses increases, the fuel for SCP-081 becomes more abundant than ever before. All it takes is one breath of ash, or one bite from a carrier, to start the clock. You would not even know you were infected. You would only feel a little tired. You might feel a bit warm. And then, one day, without any warning at all, you will simply become the spark.